Titebond might be best known for their wood glues, but professionals also rely on their sealants to tackle the toughest parts of the home. One of the standouts is Titebond UA 920 sealant. It's a premium hybrid sealant made to move with siding, windows, doors, and trim, whether you're working inside or out. It stays flexible over time and keeps joints sealed as the house shifts and settles. If you want to learn more about UA 920 or check out the rest of Titebond's caulks and sealants, head over to titebond.com. Upgrade your home's exterior with Exceed Siding by Versatex. Engineered for unmatched durability and a sleek, modern aesthetic, Exceed provides a high-performance, weather-resistant shield that outlasts traditional materials. The ultimate low-maintenance choice, Exceed's advanced polymer construction resists rotting, cracking, peeling paint, and fading. Lightweight 16-foot boards, nail hem brackets for tight joints, and the VZD drop lock system for solid straight lines make installation faster and easier. Plus, with a built-in color cap, there's no need for routine painting. For a premium finish that stands the test of time, choose Exceed Siding by Versatex. This comes from Jim. Jim writes, I bought a 10-year-old house in North Carolina. The house is in climate zone 3A. It has an unfinished basement, although I guess in North Carolina, we don't call them basements. It's a walkout lower floor. The house was built with 6-inch insulated walls. 3 sides of the walkout are cinder block and dry as a bone. The floor is concrete, flat and dry, and covers about 1,300 square feet. I want to floor it with engineered hardwood. I was in Tampa, Florida recently and noticed a flooring wholesaler. I went in and found a nice tongue and groove 6-inch wide plank, 5/8 inch thick overall, with a 4mm white oak wear layer over a plywood base. Here's my question. I told the warehouse sales guy I intended to put down a vapor barrier, pave the floor with 3/4 inch oriented strand board, nailed or screwed to the concrete floor, to which I would edge nail the engineered flooring. He said I could save a lot of money and work by just gluing the floor directly to the concrete slab. Is that a thing? By which I mean seems like it could just be a labor-saving contractor shortcut. Will it not be relatively hard and cold, difficult or impossible to repair, and the installation itself fraught with fugitive glue? It would probably be cheaper and faster though, right? Thank you. When you get around to this question on the podcast, would you please prompt a discussion of the merits of gluing down the floor versus laying a subfloor and nailing the floor onto? So yeah, this is totally a thing. And if you live in places where a slab on grade housing is the norm, this is how you have hardwood flooring, very common. Fine Homebuilding did an article on it many years ago, and I'll link that on the podcast page. They want you to use engineered hardwood, which you already mentioned that you want to use anyway, Jim, but that's because it has less problems with movement for the inevitable seasonal uptake when conditions are more humid versus when they dry out. So the engineered products handle that better. What do you guys think about gluing down hardwood? It's in Fine Homebuilding. Does that make it a good idea, Grant?
I don't have a problem with it if you do the right, use the right products. I believe the ones I haven't done it myself, but the company I would use for almost all my flooring type products, glues, mortars was Bostik, and they definitely have a system to do this. It probably isn't cheap. It's probably more expensive. The vapor barrier and glue combination is probably more expensive than you might think it is. But if you install that properly, I don't see any issue with this. I don't even know if it'd feel cold underfoot. It might feel a little cold underfoot, but I don't think it's going to be noticeable. I think with that thick, he said it's a thicker floor. I think he's going to be fine.
He's also North Carolina.
Yeah.
It might be cold where Randy is. No matter what you do, it's going to be cold.
Yeah.
Randy, before we get onto your project of a similar ilk, what do you think about gluing down versus putting the plywood subfloor?
I actually went to my one of the companies I used to work with, the flooring companies, and asked them what they're doing just to see, and they said, yeah, we use actually the Bostik product. It's called Green Force. He did call it a Popeye arm product because it's apparently very thick to trowel.
So putting it on is difficult. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So you end up working some Popeye muscles in your forearms a little bit, but it's they swear by it. They say it's one of the great options. They said that they will sometimes float them. They'll put a pad underneath. They will glue the tongue and groove. It's still a glued down product, but it all floats with that pad underneath. And if you're worried about a cold floor, that would be one way to get by, because that pad will add a little bit more insulation. But you do have it floating then. You got some different possibilities that could happen, some movement, some things might buckle, they're moving a little bit. So gluing down, I think, would be the way I would do it. Yeah.
Any reason to put the subfloor down? I can't think of a good reason.
My climate would be for warmth. If you're not going to do any kind of a heated floor system, get to the edges of a slab in mine, even the insulated slabs, they might be in the 40s or 50s, right on the edge of the concrete. You get into the floor a little bit more, of course, it starts warming up, but even 60 degrees is going to feel cool on your floor, on your feet.
Does the subfloor help with that though, Randy?
If you can insulate underneath it.
Oh, gotcha.
So there's some assemblies where you can put a layer of foam down and then put a layer of OSB or plywood or whatever you want to use over the top of that. Usually it's 2 layers. They're crossed and screwed together. That whole system is now a floating floor, and it's insulated. That'll warm things up. That's a whole nother ball game, though. That's a lot more money.
I think anyone listening to the show is going to remind us all that you need to make sure that there's not a lot of moisture movement through this floor, and there are tests you can do to determine that. But the success of this depends on this being dry and not a lot of moisture or water vapor moving through it. What do you think, Grant?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say to Randy's point was, the only reason I would see putting the plywood down or the subfloor down is if you were insulating underneath it. Because if not, it's still a wood product down against a vapor barrier, which is exactly what you're doing by gluing the floor down anyway. So what's the difference? In that case, I would actually lean towards, I think the Bostik Engineer, if you use their systems, it's sometimes like Randy said, they make a 1-part glue. They also make like 2-part glues where you put a vapor barrier membrane down, and they are very good with their data sheets and their instructions where they'll probably tell you based on the moisture content of the slab, what's underneath the slab, here's what you need to do. But I would think I would have a lot more trust in that engineered system from the manufacturer. And it usually carries a warranty if it's installed right. So I would see no issue doing it that way.
The other risk here, and Randy was touching on it, is if this slab is uninsulated, it could be a condensing surface. And, North Carolina might have dew points, 65, 70 degrees in the height of summer when it's super humid out. And it would seem like a basement space or a walkout lower level, if you want to call it that, has a greater potential for condensation. And I think you could get in trouble with the hardwood in that situation. Am I right, guys?
Yeah, you're definitely going to want to watch humidity inside the house. If it's air conditioned, try to get those dew point temperatures down to where they're not going to be an issue. Dehumidification even. Again, that goes back to the rest of the assembly of the house, right? Is it air sealed? Is it? It's just, there's a lot to it. So
houses are systems. That's
exactly.
That's a takeaway. I mean, I was just in North Carolina for this one photo shoot that's coming out, and it's, I had a lot of conversation down there. It's we need to start thinking of houses as systems, because, you can't just change one thing and everything else doesn't just, everything changes when you change one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That article, Patrick, that you're going to post to or link, that did talk a lot about floor leveling, making sure that the floor is flat, right? I mean, obviously it's got to be pretty flat. And I've kind of got a little bit of a story about this. So this is back in 2018. I was hired to do a tiling job. Again, it's not the same product, but obviously tile, you have to have a flat floor. You can't bend a tile, especially the ones that were laying. They were a wood grain, so they were, I think, 6 inches wide and 4 feet long or 3 feet long.
And they're warped anyway, right?
And they've got a cup. Yes, they've got a cup. So you got to pull them down and lash them and get it all down. But this basement, I sent Patrick some pictures. They're in a 4-foot level. I had 2 inches of change from one side of the level to the other, where the level was not touching the floor anymore. It was that bad. And I had part of the job was to straighten this floor up before I started laying. So I had to floor level this whole 1,500 square feet. If I remember, it was about 1,500 square feet of flooring. I had so many 50-pound bags of floor leveler that I had to pull out, mix, dump. One of the issues is there was some furniture inside these rooms that I couldn't pull out. I had to just raise them up. I put them on blocks. I poured around them, and then I have to move them, bust the blocks out of them. And so just to be aware that it's a lot of times this isn't just as easy as, hey, I'm going to spread this product out. We're going to set the flooring. We're done. There's oftentimes just as much work going into the prep of a floor system as there is into the actual setting or laying of the product. Yeah, it's crazy.
It looks like in the photo you sent, Randy, there's 50 bags of leveling combat. And you said this was half of the amount you needed? That's mind blowing.
That was, if I remember, it was 120 some bags that I
had. And you mixed all this?
I did. I had like a 30-gallon plastic tub. You do 2 or 3 at a time. You'd mix it up really good, and then you dump it out, spread it around. You had these cleats on your shoes that you could walk around. Yeah, it was crazy.
I saw that picture, and it triggered flashbacks for me. Not great ones. I had 2 basements that I did that I got snuck up on by self-leveling. There you go, Sam. There's another one to think of for things to watch out for.
Right? I just thinking of Sam.
And the one was it was about 100 bags, and it was terrible. I mean, we brought the center up 3/4 probably to get, and if you're lucky, this is sad you say, if you're lucky, it will be like, oh, it's all dipping to one spot. If you're unlucky, it will be waves. And then you have, and then depending on what you're trying to meet, like I had one I had to do where I poured 60 to 70 bags of self-leveler, but then I also had to grind 150 square feet off to get, so I'm in there with a huge Edco double floor grinder. Like, it is. And of course, it's in a house that's occupied with animals and all that. It's like, brutal. But self-leveling pours are one of those. And the stuff's expensive.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The good stuff is not cheap. You're looking 25, 30, $50 a bag. Yeah. They're really good.
It's perhaps the most inappropriately named product. There's nothing self about it.
Manual leveler. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you have, depending on how thick you pour it, you either have to feather edge it, but the problem is the stuff usually gets hard so fast that it's hard to get around to feather edge it. So then you're usually also feather edging that with another product. So yeah, we should write a story on self-leveling. It's horror stories from the self-leveling.
Oh my gosh, so part of me is like, would have been cheaper to break out that concrete slab and do it right, but whatever. I was trying to think of some of my worst construction situations, and crawling through crawl spaces on your hands and knees that are wet, and you don't know if there's animals in there. And oh my gosh, some days are just amazing. You're up framing a roof or doing something, and it's a beautiful day, and you see the results of your work and things are going swell, and you're hanging out with people you like and sharing this experience, and it's awesome. But there are other days it is just brutal, just absolutely brutal. And I think weather was a big challenge for me. Nashville, I'm guessing, would be stupid hot in the summer. It does get cold, but yeah. What made you want to do it, Grant? What made you decide that construction was the thing?
I don't know. I always say, I joke about it. My grandfather was a GC, and he had me like cutting rafters when I was like 5 or 6 years old. And then, my dad he's an engineer, but we did a lot of home projects. We lived in an old farmhouse. So, I always like to say, I kind of, I didn't have a choice. It's kind of, I was born into it, whether that's good or not. So.
I think a lot of folks who listen to the show, I'm sure, would say the same. What about you, Randy? What was it?
I fell in love with it. I was being groomed to be in the hospitality industry. I was going to be a restaurateur. My dad owned several of them when we were growing up. He had one that I was probably going to end up having to take over, and when I started cooking when I was 15 years old, I was doing dishes at 13. I was bartending when I was 22. I I found out I didn't like that. And my brother was moving into the industry as an electrician, installing septic, stuff like that. And I went to work for him, and it didn't take me long to realize that I really enjoyed working with my hands, doing that kind of stuff. The satisfaction, like you said, when you take a step back and you see what you just did, just go, wow, that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I joke about it, but a lot of it is I agree with Randy. I found a lot of satisfaction from the craftsmanship, from the pride in the work, and from like doing things maybe more than somebody else, other tradesmen in the area would do. Like I've always, trim carpentry was one of the things I loved, and I really had a lot of satisfaction from taking, a stack of wood that was, just flat stock on the ground, or even rough milled lumber, and then all of a sudden you turn it eventually into something finished. It was good, and it's always a puzzle, and I appreciated that. There's always something
I like
to figure
the problem
out.
solving too. If you're that kind of person, it's the perfect work because there's always problems to solve. Whether it's the build or getting stuff done in the right order or in a timely fashion or whatever it is. Yeah. It was something that I wasn't an athlete. I was not a star student. I was terrible at the French horn. I was a pretty bad vocalist, but boy, I was pretty handy. And there was something very satisfying about that when you're a young person to be good at something. And it doesn't take long for that to feed on itself.
When you say that, I feel like Randy would know who this is. Do you know who Red Green is, Randy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like he always says, the women don't find you handsome. They at least find you handy.
How true.